2006, most of you probably weren't born. I get to start coaching the gentleman coming up next. Try to make it a distance run. And I get accused of making everybody a distance run. But it didn't work. So it took me about a year to get smart. And then they proceeded by the time he graduated to jump 24 feet, 1.5 inch, about 49 feet to triple jump. Ended up being an Olympian in the triple jump. And I think it was because of his distance background. So, but I want to let him explain all that to you. Olu is going to come up. He's an amazing young man. He's been part of my family since about 2006, 2007. And if he comes to town and he doesn't call my wife, he gets in a lot of trouble. But this young man's very, very special. He's going to get ready to go to Paris and do some photo stuff. But I'm going to let him talk about his career. So I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm just going to have Olu come on up now.
How's everybody doing? So, if you guys have heard me speak before, you know I need some energy, so I'm gonna say it one more time. How are y'all doing? That's a little bit better. All right. So, my people, I am Olu. My full name is Olumide, and as you can see on this presentation, I'm going to go through the presentation. I'm going to go through a couple slides here, but as we get started, I first want to say, even before anything else, how many of you guys and girls were here last year? Just for a show of hands. Okay, so you guys, some of you know who I am, right? And how many of you are, well, let's see, let's just get a distribution of where you guys are in school. I know the counselors are down here, correct? And then how many of you guys are freshmen going into high school? Sophomores, juniors, seniors? Okay, and that means how many of you are 18 years old? Wow, so I was officially here before any of you guys were born. Thanks for making me feel old, appreciate it. But jokes aside, I wanted to start with saying, you know, as Coach Davis said, I'm part of his family, Coach Davis is part of my family, and I'm sure most of you guys have heard about Coach Helmer, one of the co-founders of Blue Ridge Running Camp. And if it wasn't for Coach Helmer, none of us would be here. So I wanted to take a moment to both give him and Coach Stanley Morgan. Everybody remembers Coach Morgan from last year? Couldn't go into the cafeteria without seeing Coach Morgan. So I want to give both of them their flowers, send their families our condolences. These are two men who really helped shape who I am and as I stand on this stage. And I can't overstate the impact they've had on my life. I might get a little emotional, so give me a moment. But I just want to give a quick moment of silence for them because their impact really lives on to everything we're doing here. So as you can see up here, I graduated from Mountain View in 2008. I graduated from Indiana University in 2012. I am a 2016 Olympian in the triple jump where I represented Nigeria. And right now, this is my 8th visit to Blue Ridge Running Camp over the course of 18 years. My first 2 times were here as a camper. Then I was here 2 times as a counselor when I was at IU. Then I was here, or have been here, first time was speaking was in 2016 on this stage, a couple days before I headed to my first Olympics in Rio. And that was a magical moment for me because obviously it was a big goal to make it to the Olympic Games, which I will get more into in this and further into this presentation. And now this is my 3rd year consecutively coming back to speak. And each time I come up here, it's such an honor. And I mean that in the truest sense of the word. I think if you guys were here hearing me speak last year, you know that I speak from the heart. So I wanted to lay a couple ground rules first as we get into this, One, this is a safe space, as safe as it can come. So when we have an extensive Q&A session at the end, I want everybody to, while I'm speaking, be thinking of things you want to ask. We're going to make this as interactive as possible. But two, I'm going to be sharing vulnerably with you, because I feel like in order for us to really make the connection of where I am and where you are, I need you guys to know my story from the dirt, from the ground up. Does that make sense? So, a couple different things. Can I get a little bit more energy? I like that. I can work with that. So I need that throughout this whole time. Last year when we came, it was right after Reddish Knob. And I was a little bit mean. I had you sit on the gym floor and you were tired. But this time you haven't run Reddish Knob yet. So there's no excuses for the little mopey dopey, okay? Okay. So, and then as Coach Davis said, I am now a videographer, content creator. I basically, anything with the camera, if it's in front of the camera or behind the camera, I do it. This is a self-portrait I took last year in May. I just love working with cameras, and I tell this story all the time. Back when I was in high school, I was discovering my passion with photography and videography. I just knew I was creative, and I took photojournalism class and video production as well. I would take the cameras out to track practice and be running around with my friends, recording some silly little videos, and I would have never imagined that I would end up where I am now, doing what I'm doing for a living. And last year I talked about the importance of getting a hobby, and how getting a hobby is an investment in your future. And what I'm gonna do this year is similar to last year's format, where I can talk. I can stand up here, as Coach Davis said, I really could be up here for 3 hours, and I don't wanna bore you. But at the same time, I wanna make sure that everything I say is pertinent to where you are. So rather than go on like a super duper long spiel about one thing, I'm gonna share with you 3 of the lessons like this year, like I did last year, about what I really wish I knew when I was your age, okay? So you guys ready for that? Yeah. So a little bit more. Yeah. I asked for a lot, so just bear with me. And then the last thing up here, and I'm not gonna read off the slides too much, but I'm headed back to Paris. I'm headed back to the Olympics next week. And it is, when I say it is a dream come true all over again to go back to the Olympics to do something completely different than what I was doing the first time, I can't overstate that. But again, let me not get ahead of myself. I'm gonna get through the slides. I'm gonna show you some media, some pictures that I've taken, some pictures of me throughout the years, and then we'll touch on all the points that I've mentioned in this first intro. All right, so my mission statement is simple, and I first discovered this after coming back from the Rio Olympics in 2016. And I went to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Anybody been to that museum in DC? Yeah, so have you guys been to the sport exhibit on like the 3rd or 4th floor, I think it is? Yeah, you guys know what it is. So when you walk up in there, what you'll see, if you look very closely in the Olympics section, there's a quote. It says, "The road to the Olympics leads to no city, to no country. The road to the Olympics leads, in the end, to the best that's within us." And it's a longer quote, but who here knows who Jesse Owens is? That's good. You guys, if you're running track, I don't care what event you are in, you need to learn the story of Jesse Owens. I highly recommend watching the movie Race if you want to know more about his story. But he mentioned that the road to the Olympics leads nowhere but to the best within us. And I didn't know when I was graduating from college in 2012 and going through the trials and tribulations that I will share a little bit more about with you after this, that I would be landing in Rio more happy about having gone through the challenges than I was about actually touching feet in the country. That'll make sense in a little bit. I'll tie that in for you. So the why behind my work, whether it's behind the camera, whether I'm coaching, whether I'm competing, whether I'm creating, the why behind my work is to live as an example of how every single one of us in here, is capable of creating success on the track and off of it. And when you find success on the track, it bleeds into every other aspect of your lives. This goes back to what Coach Tim was just saying. We are out here to devote and dedicate ourselves to our craft. And when you find success in one aspect of your life, it will lead to other aspects of your life as well. So, trying to watch out for a little bit of feedback. A couple funny pictures. So that's Coach Davis. it's a kind of dark, but this is Coach Davis and one of my teammates back at the 2008 Indoor States at George Mason. Coach Davis over there, probably getting ready to yell at somebody, probably just had yelled at me. In the middle is this picture, and I don't know, I sent Cedric the link. I don't know if he's watching right now, but Cedric is one of my best friends, also doing very big things. Both Cedric and I, this is 2000, Coach Dave, you know what year this was, King George? Well, sheesh, I guess we're both old because I don't remember either. I think it was like 2000. Yes. I think it was more like 3 whole miles, and we ran 0.1. But this was this was a 5K. This was my first 5K. I believe it was a King George in like probably 2006, 2007. And yeah, it was fall 2006 as a matter of fact. That's me on the left. That's some guy in the middle, and that's Cedric on the right. We smoked him. And the funny thing about us running our 5Ks is that we would jog. I mean, legitimately jog, walk, sprinter jog throughout the woods to King George. And then by the time with King George's course, you got up to the top side, and then it was like you ran around the corner and then you could see the finish line. And Cedric and I just walked this kid down. We smoked him. He wasn't ready. So that was my story. At that time, I was just running cross country because Coach Davis told me I was supposed to do it. I didn't know I was going to make it to the Olympics. I didn't know I was going to be a triple jumper. At the time, I thought I was going to be a great quarter miler. So much for that. And this is me actually freezing in the pool at Blue Ridge back when we used to go to the pool back then. Again, I think that was 2007. This is my first year at Blue Ridge as a camper at the OG Sprint Group. This was 2006. Cedric is in the bottom row right there. I'm in their red shirt, looking too cool to smile. This is the second year at Blue Ridge. Couple OGs, most of the older people in here know who these people are. This Lee Bradley in the front, Rex Parker, myself, Cedric again. And then these were my first 2 years this is my first year as a counselor here. This was 2009 after my freshman year at IU. Again, Cedric's in the picture. And I keep bringing up Cedric because if you look at my story and see where I'm going and what I'm talking about and how successful I've found myself to be in life, he's taken it to the same level in his own life equally. And I bring all this up and I keep belaboring this point because I was sitting in those pews. As Coach Connolly said, each of us is simply born. We are not born successful, we are just born. You got me? What we do with what we are given when we enter this world is what determines what we get out of our lives. I was sitting in these pews thinking my first year, oh yeah, I'm about to be a crazy quarter miler. Psych. Before that, I thought I was going to be a football player. I don't know if you see me, but I weigh 149 pounds right now. I'm not playing no football. But there are a few different things that I always thought that were going to happen to me regardless. I knew I was going to go to get a scholarship. I knew I was going to take track and field professionally at some point. I didn't necessarily know how those things were going to happen, but I just trusted that if I kept working, it could figure it out. I really, really credit Coach Davis, and this is why I say Coach Davis is family, because he's the first person outside of my family to have told me that I could be pretty good if I just tried. And these pictures are so special to me. I just pulled them off of my Facebook a few minutes ago because these are the years where I was just figuring out that if I tried a little bit more here and I paid a little bit more attention here, I could get out so many more results there. The difference between me and you is simply a matter of time. It's been 18 years since I was first sitting in those pews, flirting and macking with Coach Sauer's athletes. Like, I was here just like you guys, not really thinking beyond just the end of the week. I was just here to have a good time. And here I am up on the stage talking with you, sharing my story. So if whatever you see in me, understand that it's already within you. And the difference between you reaching the successful places in your life and where I am now is simply a matter of time and nothing else. It's not about potential. It's not about talent. It's barely even about opportunity. It's about realizing that you have the same seed of gift of potential within you, okay? So now let's get to the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about today. The 3 points I wanted to discuss about the past year, which have really, really helped me hone in and develop a mindset that's got me realizing I'm living the life of my dreams every single day, Whether it is beautiful or ugly, painful or happy, I'm constantly living the life of my dreams. This is something I want to instill in you guys, and it's 3 separate things, lessons, keys, however you want to put them, that have allowed me to really kind of lean into this. The first is the importance of developing mindfulness. Raise your hand if you know what mindfulness is. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. What is mindfulness? Speak it, say it loud for the people in the back.
I don't really know how to explain it. We'll defer to Brooke here.
Okay, people getting scared. It's okay. I put you on the spot early. I'll give you that one. I'll give you a pass for that one. Better be ready for the next one. So mindfulness is essentially the way, everybody has a different way to describe it, but mindfulness is an approach to life. The way I define mindfulness is the ability to learn and observe from the full range of your emotions without attaching yourself to the outcome of what those emotions might mean, while also not judging whether those emotions are good or bad. When you begin to understand, and by the way, when I say this, these are things I've learned in my late 20s and early 30s, where if I knew this when I was in your shoes, and you guys think I'm successful now, I can only imagine how much further I would have taken it. I'm giving you guys the game now, and I'm hoping you take this away and try to start implementing it as soon as possible, because this can really be, these are seeds of thinking that can change your life for the better as long as you're here on this earth. So mindfulness, the ability to learn and observe from your life experiences without judgments or attachments to the outcome. The importance of being mindful, particularly in a sport such as track and field, is that, well, really in life as a whole, but within the context of track and field, is that we're going to be able to develop the ability to pull up to a competition and not find ourselves psyched out by what's going on up here. I'm sure every single one of us here can relate. How nervous do you get before a race, right? Now, how many times have you gotten nervous before a race and been like, oh man, I'm screwed? Be honest, vulnerable situation, be honest, it's a safe place. On occasion. That's fair, that's fair. How many times have you gotten to a race and be like, I'm ready to go? And how many times have you gotten to a race, said, I'm ready to go, and you choked? Exactly my point. You didn't see that one coming, threw a little curveball in there. So the reason why I bring this up is because when we learn to see that emotions are just information, period, point blank, full stop, emotions are just information, we can take the idea that this is a good emotion to have or this is bad, we can just see that the information is giving us what we need to know, right? So for example, if I am getting to a track meet and I'm like, oh my goodness, heart's thumping through my chest. Okay, my breathing's getting kind of light. Oh man, I am so nervous here. This is bad, I'm not ready to perform. Well, you've kind of written off your competition before you started. Now, if you get to the same meet, feel all the same physical sensations, but then realize, oh, I'm simply nervous. All of a sudden, you're taking the power out of from your emotions and taking the power out of them from being able to alter what you do in your performance. And the point of this is, we're starting to learn how to create a space between what we experience and our response to what our experiences are. You guys know what a stimulus is? You guys are all in school, so stimulus response. Does that sound familiar? A stimulus is an external force that provokes a response. Well, a stimulus can also be an internal, and I'm going to add to your definition. A stimulus can also be an internal situation that evokes a response. Now, if you're an animal, if you're a dog, if you're a squirrel, you're going to experience a stimulus like, for example, does somebody here have a dog in their house? You shake the food bag, what happens? They come running, right? So just like a stimulus of the food bag shaking elicits the response from the dog to come running with their mouth drooling, we as humans can acknowledge that we have consciousness, which separates us from other animals, which means when I experience a stimulus, I can become mindful and create a space between my response. Rather than automatically responding or reacting, I can then choose a response. How this applies to us as athletes is if I get to a meet, or I get to an exam, or I get to any other situation and I feel the physical emotions that make me realize I am nervous, Rather than feeling like my response to this nervousness has to be me thinking I'm going to be a failure, I can instead realize, oh, this is the stimulus I'm experiencing. How am I going to respond knowing that I'm nervous? You can take a seat. You can sit and breathe. You can relax yourself. I'll give you guys a perfect example about this. When I qualified for the 2016 Olympics in 2015, I was in the Congo. And this was a very stressful, I don't know if you guys know, they say the USA track and field team is the hardest team to make. This probably is true. Nigeria, if you ask me, is the hardest team to be on. And I say that because there's so many stresses we had to deal with, but without going down that path, long and short of it is, I was supposed to be heading to the Congo for the All-African Games in 2015. And as I was getting ready to arrive, my flight got delayed. Because my flight got delayed because they didn't get me my flight on time. It's 36 hours delayed, which meant I started flying from DC, flew from DC to Paris, Paris to Gabon. Gabon got a delay in Gabon, in a French-speaking country, and I can't speak no French. Had to wait from Gabon to get to Congo. By the time I got to the Congo, I had just over 24 hours before I was going to compete. Now, the full context of this story is I just set a PR. This was in September of 2015. I just set a PR in July of 2015 at the National Championships in Nigeria, where I was then, after that, invited to compete by the then IAAF, now World Athletics, to compete at the 2015 World Championships. And Nigeria left me off that team. That was a pretty common experience for me. I've gotten left off so many World Championship teams and other big competition teams, but this one really stung. It felt personal. Because the reasons that they gave me for it, and I'm getting very open with you guys here, the reasons that I was given were that there was no funding for it. Without divulging too many details, I realized that they just turned it down with no explanation given. So I had a chip on my shoulder. 6 weeks later, September, make it to the Congo. All of this is on the back of my mind. And this is my goal was to go into 2015 and qualify for the Olympics before we even entered the Olympic year in 2016. This was my last chance to do it. I'm tired. I was starting to face some injuries from the long season. And what ended up happening was I got to the track and I remember sitting there. I did my first run through. How many of you guys know how the triple jump works? Okay, good. So I'm doing my run-throughs and my approaches and my warm-up. I remember doing the first one and just, whoa, what's going on? I could start feeling my heart fluttering. It's like, okay, I've never experienced this before. What the hell is going on? Okay, oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna compete. Oh, this is my last meet. Then out of nowhere, something clicked. I said, I'm not gonna get up from where I'm sitting until my heart rate and my breathing calms down. So there's actually a picture out there somewhere, I don't think I got it, but I'm sitting against one of those boards, the fence boards, and I'm just sitting there, my head in my arms. And I sat there for 5 minutes because that's how long it took me for me to finally calm down my breathing and be able to get up and go. What I learned in that moment was that when I experienced those stimuli of being nervous, I could then combat it with injecting calmness into the situation. Does that make sense? This is something that every single one of us can do. A few minutes later, I qualified for the Olympics with a new personal best, and the rest is history. So I just want to stress the importance of developing a mindful approach in your sport and understanding that that's going to apply to everything else you guys do in life, especially if you start it now in high school. And if you're in college, it's not too late, okay? So we're going to go on to the next one. So that's one, developing mindfulness. Your emotions are a natural part of being a human. 2, remain open to every and all opportunities that present themselves to you. Our sole responsibility in life is not to determine how we get to where we want to go. It's simply to determine where we want to go. We determine where we want to go in terms of our goals and our dreams and our ambitions, and we must trust that life will present us with these situations. Now, for me, again, when I was your age, I didn't really have the mindset I have now. But over time, what I learned is if I just trust that where I want to go, I'm going to reach my goals regardless, then I can just trust that the situations that present themselves to me are just a process of meeting that goal. Does that make sense? It makes logical sense, right? Let me walk you down memory lane. Back in 2006, again, my first full season with Coach Davis, he mentioned, hey, you should go to this running camp over the summer. This running camp over the summer. And I was like, okay, sure. But my mom was a single mother, love her, always been right there for me, and she spoiled me even when I was a kid. But I knew it would be tough for her to afford for me to come to this camp. So, as I always did, I had to get crafty, and I had to sell the camp to her. I was like, Mom, if you get me to this camp, there are gonna be college coaches there. And if I go meet a college coach, I could get a scholarship. And if I get a scholarship, you want to pay for school. I was just talking, I didn't know, I was just BSing. I'm like, this is not gonna really happen. I just gotta get to this camp, all my friends are going. Well, I went to the camp, and that's when I met Coach Helmer. And I remember that was Coach Helmer was getting ready to go to his first season at Indiana. And I remember Coach Helmer saying, do you know what the mascot of Indiana is? And I was like, at Indiana University is? And I remember thinking to myself, isn't it like a Hoosier or something? What's a Hoosier? That ain't real. I don't know. And I told him, I don't know. Turns out he's like, yeah, it's a Hoosier. I'm like, oh, huh. So turns out that was the year I met Coach Helmer. Calendar year later, Coach Helmer was sitting in our family living room offering me a scholarship to Indiana University. That's just one story. Fast forward. I got to college. I decided after 4 mildly successful, not the level of success that I wanted, years in college at Indiana University, that I wanted to experience more success. I wanted to get to the Olympic Games. I had no real practical reason to believe I would. I've only been I was a 2-time All-American, and comparing myself to others, I didn't feel like I was that successful and able to do it. Again, gave Coach Davis a call January 2012. I was like, hey, I really want to do this. He said, if you feel like you're going to do it, if you feel like you're capable of doing it, give yourself a shot now so you're not regretting not doing it later. Well, fast forward 6 months, I graduated from Indiana University. I'm getting ready to go to a couple internships to finish over the summer because, as Coach Connolly said, academics and athletics can go hand in hand. I always believe that I have been more than an athlete, even as the levels of success I've reached in this sport are just a thing that I do. I am not only an athlete. So I decided I was going to take my academics seriously. I had an internship at Apple headquarters and Verizon's headquarters as well. So before I was shipping off to California, I remember I also had a donut addiction. How many of you guys, did I tell you guys about my donut stories last year? Ooh, you guys haven't heard about No Donuts in Tokyo, huh? Okay, well, what's a quick tangent? I used to crush a dozen donuts at a time. Yeah, I mean, hey, I ain't got no shame about it. Thank you, I appreciate that. It feels good. I say donut addiction, it wasn't truly an addiction. I don't have a sweet tooth, I have sweet teeth. So because of that, I would eat a dozen donuts at a time, and then there's this one particular time I got another dozen Krispy Kremes from DuPont Circle when I was living in DC, and I had eaten the full I'd gotten through 6 donuts, and for whatever reason, of all the dozens I had eaten in my life, that one hit my stomach like nobody's business. It was like a bomb had dropped, and I was laying on the floor, I'm just like, oh my God, why am I doing this? Why am I going through this? Why is this hurting? And out of the blue, thought came to me. Is this how an Olympian would eat? Obviously, the answer was no. I answered no real quick like that, on the spot. At that moment, I said I wasn't going to touch another donut until I came back from the Olympic Games in 2016. Fast forward 4 years, I made it to the Olympic Games in 2016, came back and got my donuts. But the coolest part about that story isn't the fact that I ate the donuts, is that when I had the donuts, I realized I didn't even miss them. I found meaning in something that was seemingly so insignificant, and by relinquishing my dependency on them for sugary satisfaction, I ended up realizing that I can choose what I want to use as an opportunity for my own growth. And that goes back to my point. Remain open to all opportunities presenting themselves in front of you, whether they're external opportunities that your coach is presenting to you, that your job is presenting to you, that your school is presenting to you, or the opportunities that you create for yourself, because those little ideas that you guys might write off as being nothing, that's your internal guidance system getting you to where you want to go. Going back to my point, when you trust that life is continuously leading you to the places you want to be, those little thoughts that come from inside no longer seem insignificant. They all of a sudden become data. And that data, just like any other scientist, is going to show you how to code your way to your future. Okay? So you can train your mind to believe that you're continuously being led to your dreams. And at this point, I kind of know that I've been on this kind of path, my journey for, I guess, 33 years technically, but I've been really digging into my own mindfulness for the past 8 years. So I entered 2024 training for the Olympics, thinking I was going to triple jump again, and wanting to, but also realizing that the career I'd built for myself that was having me travel around the country, shooting, creating photography, and all these other really cool things, I didn't want to sacrifice that to go back to doing what I had already done on the track. So I decided, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to be in Paris. I don't know if I'm going to be there competing. I don't know if I'm going to be there creating. I just know that I'm going into 2024. At some point, I'm going to line up back on the track. I don't remember who it was, but somebody here last year asked me if I was going to compete again in 2024. And I said, don't be surprised if you see me on the track. At the time, I thought I might be on the track triple jumping. It turns out I was on the track wearing a weight vest, of all things, at Hayward Field at the Prefontaine Classic in May, running a race against other members of the media. I can't make this story up. When you open your mind to all opportunities that present themselves to you, life will present you information and situations that are far beyond your imagination. I never thought I'd be at Hayward Field running a 400. But here I was doing that at the pre-classic on international television. So always remain open to the opportunities that life presents to you, whether they come from externally or internally, okay? Because that's your internal guidance system telling you where to go. And the final point I want to make, because I really want to save a lot of time for everybody to really feel like you can ask me all the questions you have, so I hope you guys have been thinking your questions out, right? Making sure you're not falling asleep on me yet. The last thing, and it ties on to everything else I was saying, is when you learn how to become mindful, you're developing mindfulness, and you're training yourself to remain open to all opportunities that present themselves to you. Now you can start making some really risky bets on yourself. When I say bet on yourself, I'm saying you need to understand, as you can come to learn who you are as a person, that you are the only one responsible for seeing your goals and ambitions through. That's not to say you're self-made. I don't believe in the concept of being self-made. I feel like there's no such thing as self-made. I think that's a myth. You couldn't have made yourself. Your mother had to give birth to you, correct? So how could you be self-made in anything else? Success doesn't live in a vacuum. You can't do things without the existence of other people around you. But when it comes to your goals and ambitions, only you can be the one to see them through to life. And that's developing vision. And when you start to develop the ability to first understand what it is that you want to do from getting in touch with your internal guidance system, and then also, start to invest in your own skill sets, like I was doing in high school without even realizing it, you're now starting to make this progression towards investing in your own future. This is what betting on yourself looks like. A lot of people like to say bet on myself. Well, I bet on myself. Yeah, I went and bought this car. I'm betting on myself. No, that could be frivolous. But as you start to actually sit and develop the internal and external awareness of how to get to your goals, you start to develop the discernment of what moves to make and what moves to avoid. Again, I just bought a ticket to go to Paris last week. And while I would have liked to get paid to go to Paris, I'm not unfamiliar to spending a lot of savings to get to the Olympics. I had to do that in 2016. I think I may have said it last year, but when I went to the Olympics in 2016, there was a lot of drama going on with the Nigerian Federation, go figure. And so what ended up happening is I had to take my money from rent and then borrow a couple $1,000s from my mom to buy my own ticket to get to Rio Olympics. I didn't know how I was getting my rent back, but I knew I did not go through years of training, literal blood, more tears than I can imagine, and an uncountable and unmeasurable amount of sweat to give up on it. And I didn't give up on my donuts to not make it to the games either, so hey. So I realized I had to bet on myself by just putting the money down, and at the end of the day, trusting that it would come back as it should. Made it to the Olympics, boom, that story is what it is. Here we are, same situation. Had to put a significant chunk out of my savings to make this happen, but I don't even think I know that in the experience itself, it will be worth more than any dollar amount can be placed on it. That's betting on yourself. And then the last two things I want to talk about, again, Coach Conley basically did my presentation for me. Always, 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 always be looking to win. Always be aiming for a win. Stay with me. A win is to come first in a race, right? You guys can respond when I ask questions. It's not rhetorical. So a win in a race is to come first, sure. But if you try hard and you don't come first and you lose, can you still find a way to win? Yeah, right? Because what we determine within us is what we place value on. Now, externally, I feel like externally we do need to be trying to come first. I'm a competitor. I do not like coming in second. However, if I don't end up in first in whatever it is that I'm doing, I use those as opportunities to learn and grow. And I feel like, just like Steve Prefontaine said, to hit you guys with another quote, to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. The gift isn't the talent. The gift isn't anything other than being alive and having shoes on and being here breathing. That is the gift. So to give anything less than your best at any moment in your life is to sacrifice that gift. So why would that be any different than when you step on the track for competition? Always, always, always aim to win. If you do not aim to win, you're missing the point. Because if you're aiming to win in a track meet, if I'm aiming to win by jumping as far as I can into a sand pit, which is in real context is irrelevant in life, I'm also training myself to win in actual life. You guys with me on that? Okay. And the final thing I want to mention as I'm going to close this out and head to the Q&A is that it's okay to know you're good. Society likes to tell us that it's arrogant or cocky or negative or bad to believe that you're good at what you do. And that is something I wish I knew when I was in high school, that it's okay to know that I'm good. There were so many times in high school where I had the same cycles of competition where my back had to be up against the wall for me to perform. Coach Davis remembers this. I remember 2008 Penn Relays, and I got to Penn Relays, and it was the biggest stage of that season at the time outside from indoor states. And I remember I could only jump like 44 feet, 45 feet. And I don't know if you guys know exactly how the triple jump works. I know some of you said you do, but basically you have all these jumpers, whether it be 12, 20, whatever. You take 3 jumps, and then they take the top 9 to get 3 more jumps. And I was the 9th person to get in because I did not jump well up close to my potential. And it took me being the last person to squeeze in by the skin of my cheeks to be in that final to realize I belong here. At that point in time, I went off, jumped 48-2, and got second. It took me putting my back against the wall to realize I belong here. Now, when you realize that I got second place at Penn Relays. Like, that's a pretty good accomplishment. I was ranked in top 5 in the country for a significant portion of that year. Also a great accomplishment. It took me years, though, to realize that what I was doing, holding myself back, only getting second place, was thinking that I wasn't good enough to be there. If you are sitting in these pews, you're already good enough. Let me say that again. If you're sitting in these pews, you are already good enough. So when you start to believe this for your own self, enter whatever space you enter with the confidence of knowing that you are good. There's a difference, though, from saying knowing that you're good and putting other people down. And I think because we don't make that distinction as a society, that both we can know that we're good and we don't have to put other people down in the process, that's why we don't like to actually walk around with our chest out like we know that we're confident knowing that we're good at what we do. So I want every single person in here to realize, regardless of your results on paper, if you're here, you're already doing more work than the people who are not here. Know that every single one of you is good at what you do. Don't put other people down, lift other people up. That makes you even better at what you do. Okay? Okay? So, as I said, I've already been rambling for like 30-something minutes, and I don't know how long it is till they kick me out of here. I'm one of you. Like, I'm really one of you. I'm up here acting poised, but I'm a kid at heart. So I want to engage with you guys and, really get into the nitty-gritty of what you guys have on mind. Okay? Thank you very much.